Thank you. Well, one of the other interesting people we spoke to over the last 2 or 3 weeks was the local Gold Coast Councillor, Eddie Saraf, who gave us some fairly down-to-earth advice on how we should approach the process going forward. And as I see Eddie sitting there, I was wondering, Eddie, if you'd like to make some comments also on this quarry of ours, or this proposed quarry.
Yeah, thank you very much. And my apologies for getting a bit late. We had a council meeting and we just managed to get out. And when I got here, Rob was telling you a bit about the history. Well, I actually was there in 1997, 1998, 99 and 2000 when we were putting our planning scheme together, and I clearly recall the Reedy Creek structure plan and how all this area was going to be designated as some form of urban. I think there was some park residential and some residential approvals on that particular site. So to come here today and see that the community is banding together to fight the state government's designation for this key resource area is very unfortunate. And it's unfortunate because that land already has this residential designation, but more importantly, from my point of view, we're ignoring the fact that there's already a community that is surrounding the quarry, or the site to be the quarry, and we shouldn't overlook that fact. From my point of view, my message has been to the group, and they've been pretty active when they've come to see me, is that you've got to take a hardline approach to this proposal now, and you need to do that this side of the election. And I'm more referring to the state government election. And the reason I say that is because, you know, once an election has come and gone, then it's hard to get a commitment from your state government. But there are 3 major players in this instance, and the 3 major players are the Gold Coast City Council, the state government, and obviously the state opposition. Now, the council is being asked at this stage to change its planning scheme so that we can protect the Boral from the residential precinct encroaching on the Boral. My view is that the council needs to take a harder stance and support the community and reject any moves to have to change our planning scheme. And I know that there's been a lot of work that Councillor Robbins and Councillor McDonald have been putting forward in terms of trying to protect the community and trying to introduce some policies to give you some safeguards. In terms of the state government, and I have to say, even though that this area isn't Chris's area, in the end of the day, if you're a state politician on the Gold Coast, you represent the entire region. And I would really be asking both Christine Smith, Peter Lawler and Peter K. Croft to take the fight on your behalf and to get a commitment now. They're already in the EIS stage, but the community has spoken and the community has voiced its opinion. And I think it's your role to go to the state government and say to them, we don't want it. Sometimes we've got to step out of our comfort zone and we have to challenge our own parties. And I guess that's probably my message to Michael Hart. Michael stood here and said, you know, elect an LNP party and we'll stop the quarry. I'd say to Michael, you need to go to Campbell and say to Campbell, you need to do a bit better, and you need to give a commitment to the community right now. Stop the quarry, because it's the same way they've designated that land as a KRA, they can also undesignate it, but someone has to take that challenge on, and they need to take it now. And that's why I say, you know, don't just go into the party room and have dialogue. Go to the party room and get a commitment. But in terms of council, I know that we're already having to manage this process where we've been given a direction, and I think the direction is we have to change our planning scheme so that we can facilitate this if it does happen. I think from this point onward our language has to be a lot stronger, our opposition has to be a hell of a lot stronger, and And there was some talk, Rob spoke to me the other day about this policy that we adopted many years ago in relation to the golf courses. And the short story of this is there was a proposal to convert the Surfers Paradise golf course into a residential precinct, and the community reacted. And whilst there was some mechanism within our planning scheme to stop the development from going ahead, and it was for some 2,000 dwelling homes on the golf course, and there was flooding issues and all sorts of things. But one of the things that we did do, one of the things that the community drove was for the council to put in place a policy to protect the golf course. And we did eventually adopt that policy. It hasn't been the reason why the application for that development was rejected, but it really was some ammunition that we were able to lean on. But in this case here, perhaps a policy to try and protect those environmental values and the things that Rob put up before is probably a way forward. But that is reacting to the designation. I would again encourage you to keep the fight, keep the pressure up. Good luck.
Thanks, Eddie. That's the type of passion and support we need from our Gold Coast councillors, who are also coming up for election next year, I think. Just to change the pattern a little bit, I just might go to some of the concerned residents, and if there's anyone in the audience at the moment who has a question, I'll take that question and ask Sam and Rob and Lorraine to be ready to answer that, please. Yes?
Yeah. We purchased our property at the observatory just on 2 years ago.
I might get the microphone up for you. Just help me through
We purchased our property at the observatory just on 2 years ago, and my solicitor went through all the proper channels and the searches, and nothing come back to us about having a quarry built in this area, in paperwork or verbally. I'd like to know why we were not told. I think it's an absolute disgrace.
Just before we go, Rob, that's a question, as I was doing the invitation drops around the observatory in Reedy Creek, that's a very common question, is why didn't this come up on a property search?
Excellent question, and it is a disgrace, and that's our very point. So the Queensland government never actually officially disclosed it. It was Boral who disclosed it, and they've never consulted. That is our very point. You still cannot find out about this on any searches. It's very common knowledge. The real estate agents in the areas outside this are the ones that talk it up the most. And that's their job, I suppose, to try and sell people into their area, not one of ours. But I agree with you, couldn't agree more.
Okay, just give like a question, then I'll go back to the invited guests.
Thanks very much. Dave Taylor's my name, from Old Burley Town. Any residents here from Old Burley Town? Good, there's a few of us here. We are the closest residential area to this proposed quarry. Now, at the moment, behind the little shops there, which aren't operating in Old Burley Town, there's development going on. And there's dust everywhere. Our property butts straight onto this project. Not that we've got anything against it, but the fact being that there's dust everywhere. We've just spent $1,500 on nice outdoor furniture and it's covered in dust. I've spoken to the developer. He said, I'll get someone there to fix it. But this is not getting to the point re the quarry. Now, with the quarry here, as far as I'm concerned, you know, it's just not on. And I do go back to blaming our local council to a degree for allowing residential land to be subdivided when there are proposed quarries. We knew there was a quarry. We've been there 8 years, one of the first or second to buy in the second stage at Old Burley Town, but there is a quarry already there. And then they're going to put another one in. Now this to me is just unbelievable. And if we've got to go through state government, there's only one way to get rid of Bligh and Fraser and get someone else in, and that's to vote against them at the coming elections. And my question is, all due respect to Christine, I know she's done a fairly good job. She does know me, and every time she more or less sees me, she said, "Not you again, Dave." But anyway, we won't go down that track, Christine. But in final saying, we, if we can do this, if they're the ones that we've got to have a crack at, well, let's have a crack at them. I mean, as it says in the little pamphlet that's been given out, politicians are not our masters, they are our servants of the people.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all I'll say. We love living in the area, which you people do too.
Thank you.
Tony, can I just take the opportunity? I think it's appropriate now, given that man's comments. I'd like to read an email from, this is a very pertinent email, this is from Tony Parks. Tony, for 8 years, occupied a warehouse right next to the current quarry, which, by the way, has 8 years left to run. Tony Parks says this: for 8 years, I occupied a warehouse in a group of warehouses on Fremantle Street, West Burleigh, backing onto the current quarry. For all that time, the dust from the quarry was a constant problem and a disaster. Every day, all of our vehicles were covered in a fine film of dust. Some cars were black and expensive German models. Just a light brush against the car Duco resulted in the surface being scratched by the highly abrasive bluestone dust. The dust was also invasive inside the warehouse and office, even on days of no wind. But on windy days, particularly with the south or southeast winds, dust was everywhere. A large number of businesses in the area have closed and relocated due to the dust. I recall a well-known dance academy as well as many others over the years. Our business, Balloon Down Under, has relocated to Nerang. The attempts by Boral at dust suppression and control were pathetic. Street sweepers and some water was used maybe once a day, but more likely once a week. The biggest problem was the giant dual trailer trucks, which have dust and wet residue under the truck that is widely spread as the truck leaves the quarry and out onto the motorway. I could go on and on and on. My experience shows what a disaster a new quarry in the area will be and the effect it will have on everyone. What do you think about that? Yeah. Thank you, Tony Parks. And he's only talking about dust, not all the other issues.
Okay, Rob, thanks for that. And it's obviously a businessman who's suffered in the area, so that has not created business, that is doing business out of the area. I'm just going to, I noticed the hands up. I just would like to go back to some of the invited guests. We have, hopefully, at the moment, we have some Lord Mayoral candidates here, and Peter Young, David Power and Susie Douglas. Would any of those people like to take the mic and make some comments on their business?
G'day, I'm Peter Young. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. Thanks for the invitation, Sam, wherever you are. About 1999, I was the Vice President of the Community Association at Upper Coomera, and we were fighting the same kind of things. And the forces of, the big mining companies, extractive companies are very, very significant. And we fought against a lot of those things. In the end, I thought I can't just keep fighting this from the outside, so I got into council to try to fight these things. Now, the circumstance here is the state government has identified this key resource area. Now is the time to fight. Don't wait till later. Council will have very limited capability to apply conditions. If the government decides that this thing's going ahead, council will ultimately be making decisions about the conditions of approval and so forth. But those conditions are not going to protect you entirely from dust impacts. They're not going to protect you entirely from traffic and noise impacts. And if you want any evidence of that, I just welcome you to come up to the Pacific Pines and look from the peak there towards the huge quarry that's operating partially in the Nerang State Forest, and just see the massive cloud of dust that comes out of there virtually 20 hours a day. So council's limited in what it can apply in terms of conditions. We're just introducing our new planning scheme. We'll go to the state government in the next couple of weeks for what's called the first state image check. Just last week we've introduced into that draft planning scheme a very special provision that makes sure in the future, and obviously this will apply to this quarry if it gets to this point, a requirement whereby any new quarry has to take into account what's around it. That includes the environment, that includes the people that live nearby. Up until now, the planning scheme has been just the reverse of that. So if you want to live near a quarry, then that's got to be taken into account. But a quarry that comes last or later hasn't had to have those evaluations, and so now we're introducing that into our scheme. It's like the golf course thing that he mentioned. This won't have full weight yet, won't have full legal weight just now, but because we've got it there and we're presenting it to the state government, it gives it some weight in their evaluations and our evaluations, should this quarry thing go ahead. But I insist, please, this is the time to fight. You've got to make your voice well and truly heard. The forces of industry are up there in George Street on a daily or weekly basis. They are knocking on the door, they're having the meetings that you're too busy, you're at work, but that's their job. Their job is to lobby the state government into believing that this is necessary. By the time the 2018 games are here, we'll have 100,000 more people in the city. So their argument is simple: the city needs more resources. Give us the approval. At this point in time, this is just a blob on the map. You can get that blob changed. The state government is not exposed to compensation claims. The council is. The state government has made sure that councils all around the state, if we try to change the rules, if we try to change the town plan, an owner of a property can sue us, sue the council, sue you, because you're the ratepayers, for loss of profit. But the state government isn't exposed like that. So they have the capacity to take the blob off the map and not pay compensation. They have the capacity, insist on it. This is your golden time. As is clearly evident, there are elections coming up and you've got to make your voice known. I'm certain all the councillors here and the candidates are 100% behind you. I definitely am, and you can count on my support all the way through. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's David Power. For those who don't know me, I'll put a bit of context to what I'm about to say. I was first elected to Gold Coast City Council in 1991 and retired in 2007. The area that I represented, which was mostly the northern end of the city, had 14 out of the 16 quarries that were then in this city. So I actually understand what you're going through here. It is a frightening process. But I want to give you some hope and to give you a little bit of confidence. Rob and I have had a couple of brief chats, and I can tell you that just because a KRA, a key resource area, is designated on the scheme doesn't mean that you can't win this fight. I was successful in defending 2 rejections of key resource area applications within my division. One was a sand mine, one was a hard rock quarry. I have given my absolute support to Rob that I will help the committee structure the arguments and the resolutions that they will need to put this argument forward. It is very much a case of the manner in which you structure your arguments and the way that that is delivered. You also don't want to shoot all of your bolts in the initial stage of the battle, because if you do that through the EIS process, which now must be completed for the Coordinator General to make a decision, they will simply include some arguments that will reject your arguments. There are 2 things that can come out of the Coordinator General's process. They can decide to make the decision and approve or reject. The other thing that can happen is that the Coordinator General can actually just make recommendations for the Council to make the final decision. Now, obviously, that would be the best course of events for you as residents, because you know full well you've got the commitment from the candidates, you've got the commitment from the councillors. Regardless of who is elected at the March election, the council undoubtedly will reject this. And that's where you get your best defence. This application is not necessary. And I speak from experience, having dealt with 14 quarries over a 17-year period. They don't manage themselves properly. And when you get a truck every 60 seconds, it will affect your lives, regardless of what Boral tells you. I watched people's marriages break up over quarries that were running a truck every 30 seconds. You have an absolute commitment, and I know everyone sitting in this front row feels the same way. This should be rejected. But make sure that we go about it in the right process. You have my absolute commitment that I will sit with the committee and I will work through the recommendations and the arguments so that we produce something that gets the same result that I was able to do, or able to get council to achieve, including defending an appeal on both of them, and get this damn thing rejected. Thank you.
They're the words we want to hear from our local representatives.
I'm one of the mayoral candidates, Susie Douglas from Division 7, and I did meet some of you at Chamber of Commerce down here, and you told me about your problem that you have. I was then visited by the Boral people who made it all seem very rosy and that it was going to just go through and the state government would be able to do this without it ever having to come to council. But what I'm going to say to you is that doesn't have to be the case. This is a perfect opportunity with an election coming up. Years ago, I don't know if you remember, they wanted to put a cruise ship in the Spit, and there were lots and lots of people against the cruise ship terminal becoming a port within the Spit where people surf, dive, go by boat. There was a lot of pressure put on the Beattie government, and the Beattie government at the last minute said, okay, it's too hard. Environmentally, it doesn't stack up, even though they had environmental studies to say that it did. So people power wins. And if you can get it away from them, as David said, if you can get it away from them and it becomes a local government issue, then it has to go through impact assessment, then you have all the public submissions come in, and we can assess it for the residents against all of your needs. And then if we decide to put the quarry in, you can appeal it. You can go to the Planning and Environment Court and appeal it. But I tell you what, I know the councillors in the chambers would not want a quarry retrofitted into a residential area, and that's what they're trying to do here. In the past, we've looked at quarry sites that have been a long way from villages, a long way from schools, a long way from development. So put the pressure on the Labor government, put the pressure on the LNP, put the pressure on them to say no, make this a council decision, and then as the council decision comes through, we're putting on through Peter Young's committee on the 5th of December this year, a policy for extractive industries which talks about buffers. So it's all about knowing the issues, building up public anger, and letting the people in the government know that you won't take it lying down. Thank you.
And we're not taking it lying down, we're going to win this battle. So I'll hand you over to Keith. I'll hand you over to Keith.
Okay, my name's Keith Maitland. I'm standing for the council in this division. This quarry is right in the middle of the division, and you people are the people I hope one day to represent. First of all, I think you've been deceived. I think we're getting shafted. I think it's a disgrace. And really what we've got to do is protest. I think people are too nice here. I think we need to get in Spring Street or on the Story Bridge. One man today stopped Australia and got on national television by getting up the Story Bridge all by himself. That's the sort of impact we've got to have. We've got an opportunity. I don't want to have, to me, having all these processes, who cares? We just want it. No is the answer. It's very short. It doesn't take long. N-O. So that's what I'm about. I think we should do some protesting. I think we need to take buses to, I'm a bit emotional, as you can probably see. It just can't handle when people are getting shafted. It's a disgrace. People are losing values on their place. You know, it's a disgrace how corporate Australia can think they can get away with this sort of process and this is okay. Well, it's not okay with me. So I think we need to get buses, we need to get to Spring Street, on the Story Bridge, on national television, and complain and complain and complain. Guess what they'll do if we complain enough? They'll stop it. want it stopped. And you've got to complain. You've got to become a bigger headache than anything else. You've got an opportunity right now because there's a state of government. We don't need processes, we don't need ESIs or PSIs or whatever they want to call them. We need action. So we need people being said, we're going to stop it, that's it. Finished. Over. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks very much.
There was a gentleman at the back that wanted to have a comment or raise a question. I can get this up to you, I'll try.
Just a couple of questions. One in particular, Councillor Young made a comment that for the Commonwealth Games there will be a shortage of natural resources. Is that actually true? There was a report about that not long ago. And the second question I have is probably more directed to Christine Smith. Is it true that the state government last year reduced the buffer zone for extractive industry from 1 kilometre to 250 metres?
Christine?
Certainly that is not true, and the buffer zone on this quarry I think is about 350, Tony. You might have to help me there with the... yeah, but certainly it has not been reduced from 1 kilometre. I don't believe it was ever 1 kilometre.
The KOA presentation says that there's a minimum of 1,000 metres from the quarry.
You got me there?
Just responding to the other question about the Commonwealth Games, I did mention earlier, well I mentioned the date 2018, by then there'll be at least 100,000 more people in the city than now. The Commonwealth Games itself isn't going to create a massive amount of energy that's going to require hard rock, but as the city grows, of course, the argument will be we need hard rock for roads and all sorts of construction. That's the argument that they will naturally push. I don't think they're going to rely too much on the 2018 Games as, you know, a big part of their argument. But I will say, just if I can, because I might not have explained it clearly enough, I chair the Planning Scheme Committee now. The strategic plan is under review, and we've, in the last 12 months, implemented that corridor that was presented on one of the diagrams here, that green corridor. Now, that's not LAW yet, but it's gone a long way to becoming it, so that has to be strongly recognised by the state and by the council in any determinations here. So that's one thing in your cap. Another is the committee tomorrow will be deliberating on this quarry buffer thing, so that in future quarries that there's an application for quarry, it has to take into account what's happening around it. That goes to committee next week, goes to council, committee tomorrow, council next week, state government the week after. These things are adding up for you. Now, by fate, twist of fate, whatever, the recognition of this quarry isn't in the current planning scheme. And that may be a cause of complaint, and legitimately for some people, because it's actually been in the process since 2007, believe it or not, but it's not there yet. So it doesn't have the weight that those other things do, which is in your favour, really. Thank you.
Daphne McDonald's just arrived, so I'm sure Daphne's been a great supporter of the Quarry Action Group, and so I'll leave the microphone to you, Daphne.
Thanks very much. Actually, as the others said, it's going to be people power that stop this quarry. Now, I've been in contact, in constant contact with Rob, and we've exchanged information. And today I received the information from one of our officers that the proponent will need to make application with Council for the MCU for the quarry activity. However, the state government Coordinator General will assess and decide the proposal. So before it gets to that situation, we have to put up a strong argument why the quarry should not go ahead. Now, Boral bought the land in 2006, and as you know, things have progressed from there. The state government have called this in, and it will be the state government who makes the final decision. But certainly we can put our case to stop this quarry. It'll be by people power that we do it. I have been working hard with Rob and his team to get the information together, and we've certainly got to fight this one. The people from Old Burleigh Town are surrounded by quarries. You have people from the observatory. It's a beautiful area out here. We have concerns with the conservation of the area, and we have concerns with the traffic and everything else. So put up your case, march on Parliament House if we have to, an election's coming up, and I'd say everyone fight the quarry. Just another bit of information. As Councillor Douglas and Councillor Young stated, we've got a policy that's coming up for the Sustainable City Future Committee. Now, this was a policy that I asked Council to bring forward, and it's being addressed at the full Council meeting on the 5th of December. And hopefully, we will be able to protect any residents in the future from these type of industries. So there'll be a lot of debate, I'm sure, but I can tell you that Council is behind the community on this one.
Thanks, Daphne. What I'd like to do now is just ask any of the concerned residents that are in the audience tonight. I see that gentleman up the back would like to answer a question. I do want to wrap this up fairly quickly because we want to detail to you what we want you to do to help us here, but I will take some more questions from the concerned residents. So that person and then yourself, thanks. Would you mind coming down? Would you mind coming down?
Hi, I'm Trevor Foyle. I've lived in the Valley for 30 years, went to Tallebudgera State School when I was a kid. Now, I've seen a lot of change in this valley, and I understand that the councillors are doing their very best for us. But I understand too that disconnects work for our water. Now, these councillors are representing us, and I believe they can do more. They're not understanding the full impact of what this is doing to us and the values of our homes. This is going to cut the value of our homes by at least 50% for those in the immediate vicinity. Is that then going to affect the rates that they pull in? I don't think they're looking at that point. There's a possibility they will lose, in effect, $10 million per year from their rates revenue. I think that they can step up and do more as an entirety to go to government and say, do something to stop this. This is not also just about property values, it's about health. I have a 30% lung capacity. I understand there are other people out there with asthma, emphysema and other lung conditions. These people came to this area specifically because of the cleanliness of the air. They look for the best value of life for their children and for themselves. Where is the responsibility of our state elected representatives in ensuring that continues to happen? Why don't our local representatives force them to stand up and actually do something for us as people?
One more.
How you doing? My name's Dean Fisher. I've been chosen as a candidate for Caddi's Australian Party for the City of Burleigh. Most of you would know me, probably heard of me. Just a few points with Caddi's Party. We have 21 core values and beliefs. We must follow, no ifs, buts or maybes. Outside that, we are allowed to vote on our conscience what we believe is in the best interest of our electorate. And nowhere in here does it say a quarry is in our core value and beliefs. So I am allowed, if I get elected, to stand up and say, I don't want this here, it shouldn't be here, it's totally wrong, and I'm allowed to tell my party that. I can't get told by my party that, oh no, that's just not in the best interest of what we believe. It's what I believe, it's not in these values, so I'm allowed to fight for it, and I will fight for it. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have Councillor Robbins in our VIP list. Would you like to make a comment, Sue? I don't know if I've got...
Hello everybody. Yeah, sorry we were so late getting here. We were really tied up in the council meeting, so I missed the early part, and somebody did mention that there might be some federal government involvement, and I'm not at all across that, so it would be really useful to get that information. Look, I live in Tallebudgera Valley, and certainly I drive up and down this road every day past the school. I go along Old Coach Road. I'm certainly personally going to be affected by anything that happens here, so I am passionate about it and I am involved in trying to stop it. And whilst I'm involved in trying to stop it, at the same time, what we are doing through things we're doing with the planning scheme and the strategic planning scheme review is putting things in there to make sure that if anything does get across the line, we increase as much as we possibly can the level of protection that the community will have. But that doesn't mean we're